And I'm going to show you how to build just a very simple, basic beaver protector or tree protector for the beavers. I have some zip ties. These are just 8-inch zip ties. You can use some smaller than this. It really doesn't matter the size so much. We have some metal wire fencing. Again, it really doesn't matter what you get as long as it's stout enough that it's going to stand upright. Chicken wire, hog wire, any of that, just so that the beaver can't get through it. I don't anticipate it, digging around this just to get to these trees. And for this, we're going to be planting some dogwood up on there's a little corner of the pond that has some trees. We're going to be putting a pawpaw and 2 dogwood in there. So these will be used for that. So I want to build them about 1.5 feet in diameter, just so that the trees have plenty of room to grow for the dogwood. And then I'm probably going to do about 2 feet for the pawpaw, just to give it a little bit of extra space. Now, when you're starting to measure this stuff out, if you want your diameter, there's 2 ways to do it. You can either use math and diameter into circumference, because we need circumference to know how long of a piece to cut. Circumference is going to be diameter times pi, or 3.14. Now, the other way to do it, which is kind of the forester's cheating method, is on our logger's tape that I carry anyways in the woods to measure tree diameter. On one side of the tape is standard inches. On the other side of the tape is your diameters. So that way I can just wrap this around a tree and it tells me the diameter without having to do any math. So what I'm going to do is roll this out, and then instead of trying to calculate math, which I've done calculated the math, and 1.5 feet would be about 6 feet, give or take, in circumference. However, I can just take this and measure out to my 18-inch mark, and I can go out to my 2-inch mark, and you can see it's going to be just over 6 feet. I'm just over 6 foot tall, and that's about my wingspan. So I guess technically I could also measure it, just stretch it out from arm to arm, and it would fit. But we'll measure it out, we'll cut it. I'll show you how then we're going to wrap it up, zip tie it, and then we can clip it under our stake. We have measured it out. Right here is going to be my 1.5 foot mark, and the trusty dusty reciprocating saw is coming back out and going to make another appearance. So now, talking about multi-purpose tools, we have a metal cutting blade on it this time instead of the wood blade that we used in the Management Monday to take down the sweet gum, and we're just going to cut down through it. Now, what else could you use? A pair of wire or tin snips, or a small pair of bolt cutters would work really well in this. So we've got it cut loose, and the reciprocating saw did really well. I was actually surprised with it. This is becoming a very useful land management tool. But we have, as you can see, it's a little bit rough on the edge that it cut, so we're going to put that to the inside. So we're essentially going to wrap it up like so. To show you a little bit better, I have it overlapped through right here. I go down through her fur, down, skip one, come back up through there, go through both. Then we'll tighten that down, and here you have it, our beaver protector. And just out of curiosity, how my forester's math went, I'm now going to use the plain side of my tape. As you can see here, I'm just going to try to get a rough diameter. And right here it is about 1'6", 1'7". So we're fairly close to a 1.5 feet. So if you do have a logger's tape, just measuring out on the circumference side of it, or diameter side of it, I guess you would say, does work really well. So we have one done. Let's make 2 more for the other dogwood and the pawpaw, and then we'll go out, we'll get them planted, show you how I installed these, how I attach the stakes. Now I want to show you how we're using our beaver structure and protection to protect these seedlings, and I want to show you how we install these in or on one of our seedlings. So you have the cage here that I showed you how to build, and then the stake. Now the stake has 2 ends. You have a winged end down here, and the other end is straight. So we'll put our winged end down when we get ready to stake this all in. The first thing that you want to do is just kind of get your beaver protection around your seedling, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but try to get it as close to centered up as you can. And then we're going to take our tree dibble and go around and kind of create a little hole that this cage will sit down into. Just take the dibble, and at the base of each, we'll center it up, and at the base of the thing, just kind of go in a little bit and see it kind of wanting to fall into place. Now we just go entirely around our beaver cage with the dibble, cutting in a groove for it to sit down in. Now, once you have your cage roughed out around, you're just going to take and you want to kind of rotate it into the ground to get a decent hold best you can. And you're going to take your stake and 2 zip ties, and I like to have something to hammer your stake down in the ground. Now if you look, the stake, it's about 1 foot taller than the actual cage. So our stand is 4 foot tall, our cage is 3 foot tall, I think. So we're going to want to drive our stake at least down past the wings or flange, but typically I like to drive it down to it's even with the cage, and that way you don't have anything sticking up, and then we'll zip tie it onto the cage. Now when I'm putting this in, I like to have some hammer, some way to hit it, and I will take and stick it just up against the cage as best I can, and let's get started hammering it. Okay, so it is now even with the cage, as you can see, and we're just going to zip tie everything down, and this cage will be done and ready to go. We have our zip ties. I'm just going to take 2 out. And what I typically like to do, so on these things in particular, I'll say that at least, it has some little notches that are going up and some that are going down. And for this one, I'm going to zip tie across the one going up and then across the one going down, and that way it kind of holds it together and it doesn't really want to go up or down if anything tried to move the cage. So now that we have the zip tie around and through the thing, just tighten it up. And we'll do the same down here, and the beaver protector will be ready to go for the beavers. This is what the beaver protector looks like when it's completely done. Until next time, happy management and God bless.